Okay, here's a wild thought. What if the deepest, most destructive emotion we feel, hate, is somehow biologically tangled up with the absolute strongest positive one? Like passionate romantic love. And I know that sounds maybe like a bad movie plot, right? But there's actual research now showing that the brain circuits firing up when someone feels intense, passionate hate, well, they share key spots with the circuits for romantic love.
That's right. Specifically, two areas called the putamen and the insula. They get activated in both scenarios.
So the obsession you feel for a partner and the consuming desire to take down an enemy, they share neurological real estate. It's kind of mind-bending.
It really is.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Today we're doing a deep dive into the science of hate. We want to trace it back, from potential evolutionary roots, like maybe as a survival tool, weirdly enough. Then look at what makes it tick psychologically, and crucially, how this ancient programming might be, well, misfiring like crazy in our modern world.
And that overlap you mentioned, love and hate circuits, it's a great starting point because it forces us to see hate not just as like a moral failing.
Yeah, not just something bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's a really complex psychological thing with deep biological roots. So we're pulling together findings from neuroscience, from evolutionary psychology, social identity theory, all that.
The mission is not just what is hate, but why. Why are we even wired for it?
Precisely. Why do we have this capacity?
Okay, so we often say we hate stuff when we're just really mad, right? Like, I hate traffic. But the science says actual hate is different. It's not just super anger.
That's a key distinction.
So if it's different, how does the brain, process it differently? What does it feel like inside?
Well, it activates what researchers call a specific hate circuit. It's not just one spot. Think of it more as a network.
Yeah.
Areas in the frontal lobe, deep structures like the putamen and insula we mentioned,
Right.
the names aren't the main thing. What's important is that this specific pattern, this network firing up, it basically primes the body for persistent, aggressive action. It takes a fleeting emotion, like anger often is, and turns it into something durable, a dedicated state.
Okay, persistent and durable. That sounds different all
And psychologically, that duration is key. Robert Sternberg, a psychologist, he broke hate down into three parts. First, there's this negation of intimacy. You basically stop seeing the target as fully human. You dehumanize them.
Yeah.
Second, there's intense passion. That could be rage or sometimes even deep fear connected to the target.
And the third part, that's what makes it stick around, right? The decision or commitment, that contempt and devaluation you mentioned.
Exactly. That commitment, that's the engine that keeps it going.
Yeah.
And this is where the fundamental difference lies between anger and hate. Anger, usually the goal is to change something.
Yeah.
Change their behavior, fix a situation.
Right. You want something to stop or start.
Yeah. But the core motivational goal of hate, well, it's the elimination or destruction of the target, whether that's destroying their reputation, their social standing, or, in extreme cases, their physical existence.
Wow. So elimination, not just change.
Right. It's settled in. It becomes this persistent sentiment, not just a flare-up.
And to keep that kind of intensity going, you'd need more than just a quick shot of adrenaline, I imagine. It needs constant fuel.
It absolutely does. Biologically, we see links like low levels of serotonin, which usually helps regulate mood correlating with higher aggression.
Okay.
And then, to maintain that constant state of readiness, that arousal, the body leans on stress hormones, catecholamines, like adrenaline and noradrenaline. They keep the heart rate up, blood pressure elevated, muscles tense.
So your body is basically stuck in fight mode.
Pretty much. Perpetually ready for conflict.
Yeah.
That's what gives hate that chronic, lasting feeling.
Okay, so we've got this powerful, sustained, fundamentally destructive emotion. But now, and this is where it gets really interesting for me, how on earth could something like that have evolved as a survival mechanism? It seems totally counterintuitive.
Yeah, you have to zoom way out, think deep time. The idea is that these hate mechanisms, or the precursors to them, actually emerged because they helped groups survive, specifically through group defense and competition.
Group defense.
Exactly. There's archaeological evidence showing intergroup conflict, basically warfare between groups, goes back a long way, at least 200,000 years. This wasn't just a recent invention.
Wow, 200,000 years.
And the pressure it created was immense. Here's a pretty stark statistic for you, kind of a wow fact. Anthropological studies estimate that in many ancestral human societies, maybe 20 to 30% of all men die because of intergroup violence.
20 to 30%, that's huge.
It's staggering. And you still see echoes of this in some contemporary groups like the Yanomamo in the Amazon. So if conflict was that common and that deadly, any psychological mechanism that made your group better at winning those conflicts? Well, it would be strongly selected for, even if it involves hostility.
Okay, but hang on. Wouldn't pure cooperation be better? Why wouldn't avoiding conflict be the best strategy? Why the hostility link?
That's the fascinating part. The theory suggests that intense loyalty within the group and hostility towards other groups might have actually evolved together. They might be two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
This is the core idea behind a framework called parochial altruism. It was really formalized by two economists, actually, Jung-Kyu Choi and Samuel Bowles back in 2007.
Parochial altruism, meaning local kindness, outside aggression.
Sort of, yeah. Parochial meaning focused on your own narrow group. They propose that altruism being cooperative and self-sacrificing for your in-group and hostility towards out-groups co-evolved.
How does that work?
It's based on something called multi-level selection theory. The logic is pretty straightforward when you think about it. Within a single group, maybe selfish individuals do better. But when groups compete against each other,
Ah, the group that works together best wins.
exactly, the groups that had strong internal cooperation and were effective at defending against or attacking other groups would consistently outcompete the less cohesive or less aggressive ones. Think of it like rival sports teams. The team with the best internal teamwork and the most aggressive defense usually comes out on top over time.
That makes sense. And this competitive edge, it seems like the research points heavily towards males, right? That brings up the male warrior hypothesis.
Precisely, the MWH, yeah. It argues that because males were historically the primary participants in these kinds of between-group raids and battles, this recurrent coalitional conflict shaped some distinct psychological adaptations, specifically in men.
Like, what kind of adaptations?
Well, cross-cultural studies consistently find that men, on average, show a stronger bias towards their in-group, especially in competitive contexts. They seem more motivated for group versus group competition compared to women.
Okay, I remember reading something about the neurobiology here that seemed almost backward. You'd think being aggressive would make you less cooperative?
It does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it? But it's about the group dynamic. Research has found that testosterone levels actually correlate positively with in-group cooperation, but specifically during contests with other groups.
So the hormone fueling aggression also fuels the teamwork needed to win the fight.
Essentially, yes. It helps men band together effectively to face that external threat. It's about coordinating the aggression. The MWH also suggests that women's responses to out-group threats might have evolved differently, maybe prioritizing protecting offspring, leading to more fearful or avoidant reactions rather than direct confrontation.
Different roles, different evolutionary pressures.
Yeah. Okay, so we've established this picture. We seem to be wired, to some extent, for tribalism, for cooperation within the group, and potential hostility towards outsiders. Adaptations for a world of small, tight-knit groups, maybe 50, 100, 150 people max.
Right, where you knew everyone, probably related to most of them. But what happens when you take that ancient wiring and drop it into, well now, into massive societies, millions of people connected instantly across the globe? What does this all mean for us today?
It means we're likely dealing with a huge case of what scientists call evolutionary mismatch.
Mismatch, meaning our instincts don't fit the world anymore.
Exactly. Our psychological hardware, finely tuned over millennia for one environment, is now running in a completely different modern operating system. And it causes problems. It becomes maladaptive. It's like trying to navigate New York City with a map of ancient Rome. The tools are wrong for the territory.
Okay, so what are the specific mismatches when it comes to hate?
Well, the first big one is scale. Our brains evolved to make a sharp distinction between us, our family, our immediate neighbors, our tribe, and them, basically everyone else, the strangers over the hill.
It worked in small groups.
Right. But today, we live in these enormous anonymous societies, and we're forced to apply that same intense us versus them psychology to huge abstract categories. Think political parties, nationalities, religions, even online fandoms.
So the enemy isn't the small band in the next valley.
No. It's this vast abstract group of millions, maybe people we've never met, people we only encounter through news headlines or social media posts. Our tribal brain struggles to cope with that scale.
And the second mismatch you mentioned, speed.
Is speed. Cultural evolution, especially technology, social media, global communication, moves at lightning speed compared to biological evolution. Our genes just haven't caught up.
So our reactions are outdated.
Fundamentally, our psychological mechanisms for dealing with conflict evolved over hundreds of thousands of years for localized, maybe spear-level threats. Now, those same instincts are being triggered by global events, amplified by instant communication and playing out in a world with, frankly, weapons of mass destruction. The ancient mechanism is the same, but the context and the potential consequences are terrifyingly different.
Which brings us to how hate spreads today. It feels almost viral sometimes. You mentioned mimetic theory earlier, the idea of ideas spreading like genes or viruses. How does technology turbocharge this ancient tribal thing?
It's a powerful combination. Hateful ideas, these toxic memes, they can replicate and spread through populations incredibly fast online. Why? Because they often offer really simple, emotionally potent ways to make sense of a complex world. They tap right into that us versus them framework.
Makes things seem black and white.
Exactly. And here's a crucial concept researchers talk about, mimetic immunity. Once you're exposed to and you buy into a particular ideology, especially a hateful one,
You become resistant to anything that contradicts it.
precisely, you develop a kind of psychological immunity to competing viewpoints, to empathy, to evidence that challenges your narrative. It creates these echo chambers, these filter bubbles we hear so much about.
Wow. Mimetic immunity. That's a chilling phrase.
It really is. And digital platforms, where context often collapses and a single inflammatory symbol or phrase can reach millions instantly, they just amplify this polarization effect dramatically.
So, if this problem is rooted so deep in our evolutionary psychology and these tribal instincts, then just telling people don't hate or trying to reason with them, that's probably not going to cut it, is it?
Likely not on its own, no. That's one of the key insights from this line of research. If the roots are this deep, simple, rational arguments or moral pleas, often bounce right off that mimetic immunity.
So, what can we do? Are we just stuck with this?
Not necessarily. The most effective strategies seem to be ones that work with our evolved psychology, not against it. They try to redirect those tribal instincts rather than just suppress them.
Redirect them.
Well, one major approach is to try and expand the psychological boundaries of the in-group. Use our capacity for loyalty and cooperation, but make the us much, much bigger and more inclusive. Find common ground, shared goals.
Make them part of us.
Essentially, yes.
Mhm.
Or provide alternative outlets for that competitive coalitional drive. Things like team sports are a classic example,
Mhm.
or intense pro-social group projects, community building, scientific collaboration, disaster relief, channeling that energy constructively.
Are there specific programs doing this?
Yes, there are. For example, the Hateless program. It works with adolescents, teaching them to recognize hate speech and respond effectively. But it does this by targeting those underlying mechanisms, building empathy, increasing their confidence to act as an ally, or what they call counter-speech self-efficacy.
So it's about making fighting hate the new defending the tribe.
In a way, yeah. It channels that protective group defense impulse in a positive anti-hate direction. Hashtag hate outro.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really dense but fascinating deep dive. Let's try and boil it down. What are the, say, 3 big takeaways everyone should remember from this? First, I'd say hate isn't just extreme anger. Neurologically, it's a distinct, sustained state. And bizarrely, it shares some brain circuitry overlap, that feeling of intense focus or obsession with romantic love. Its core goal isn't change, it's elimination.
Good summary.
Second takeaway. Evolutionarily, this capacity for hate seems linked to something called parochial altruism. Basically, for our ancestors, being fiercely loyal and cooperative within the group, and potentially aggressive towards other groups, might have been a winning survival strategy. Two sides of the same coin.
The co-evolution idea.
And third, and maybe most urgently, we're living through a massive evolutionary mismatch. Our ancient us versus them instincts built for small-scale tribal life are being dangerously misapplied and amplified in our huge, interconnected, technologically saturated modern world.
Couldn't have said it better. And if you connect that to the big picture, what the science really shows us is that humans have this dual capacity, right, for incredible cooperation and intense competition.
Right.
So by understanding these deep roots of group identity, how tribalism works, how ideas spread online, we can actually start to design better institutions, better social structures, better online environments maybe, ones that deliberately channel those competitive instincts towards pro-social goals.
The ultimate aim being engineering a bigger us.
Effectively, yeah. Engineering a psychologically larger, more peaceful global in-group. It's ambitious, but understanding the mechanism is the first step.
And researchers are even developing tools now, right? Like the hate behavior scale, HBS, and the abolish hatred scale, AHS, ways to actually measure and quantify these complex attitudes.
That's right, trying to get a scientific handle on it.
So if we can start to scientifically measure the different dimensions of hate, I guess a final question we leave you, the listener, with is this. How quickly can our society or technology, our culture adapt to our ancient wiring? Can we figure out how to manage this powerful primal emotion before it overwhelms the modern world?